Hi, I'm here today with Walter Bird, editor of the Worcester magazine. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this is great. We want to talk a little bit today about where media is going, and it's changing so much. There's still, and I'm a freelance writer, so I have a stake in this as well as an avid reader of newspapers and weekly newspapers.
Why aren't you writing for us?
Well, that's a good question. We'll have to solve that at some point. But there's still a place for newspapers, yes, both dailies and weeklies, but news is being communicated in a lot of different places now. And you and Worcester Magazine have sort of led the way in some ways, in some respects, in terms of doing that. Worcester Magazine, of course, people may be familiar with it's a weekly,
sure,
serves all of the greater Worcester area, Central Mass area.
Worcester County, yeah. And
that's right, you're distributed throughout
Worcester County.
Worcester County.
Yep.
But you're also doing things on radio and cable television. I don't know if you're podcasting as well, but tell us a little bit. For instance, what are you doing with radio?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, Matt, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I appreciate it. And don't venture into Shrewsbury much. Yeah. It's a great town.
It is.
It's a great town.
You have to come here more.
It's maybe heresy to say that from Worcester. But no, truly, Worcester Magazine has come a long way. It is a print, so base operations, it's a print paper that comes out every Thursday. And I've been doing that now for over 40 years, Worcester Magazine has. But you said it, the times they are changing, and the media definitely are changing. And so one thing that I've tried to do as editor is branch us up, really mostly from marketing standpoint. We don't have a marketing budget, so how can we expand our footprint in our brand? In the constraints that we have, the financial constraints we have. And one of the ways I saw of doing that is taking advantage of what your community has to offer. Local options like TV, radio, whatnot. And I can say this, the first real way that we've morphed and changed is online, obviously. Mm-hmm. So online came and kind of changed the entire game. So Worcester Magazine is now online every day. We post fresh content every day. So it's not just a weekly paper. You go online. In fact, if you pick up the weekly paper on Thursday, you're going to get almost entirely fresh content than what you got online. Most of the stuff that we put online doesn't go in a weekly paper. It's just daily stuff that we put up there to engage our audience.
Yeah, I subscribe to that, and I do get the news from you every day. And that's also because I remember asking you about this, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. I was missing the calendar section. And
the calendar changed.
The calendar changed. It's now online.
We have an online calendar, correct. So we do still have one in print, Matt. It's not, it's 8 or 10 items, 8 or 10 events. It's not the way it was. It was 4 or 5 pages before. Yes. And we just thought that we thought that we could do more things with those pages. We've added an adoption option. We partnered up with Worcester Animal Rescue League to do that. An artist spotlight. So we've tried to use those print pages to reach a more diverse audience. Believe me, I heard about the calendar. People want to see the calendar, but it is online. You go to worcestermag.com. It's a new calendar, by the way. I think it's much better than the older one was online. But I really wanted us to become multimedia, and I meant multimedia. So print and online is great, and online digital really is the future. And we had the opportunity. 2017, Hank Stoltz. Mm-hmm. If you don't know Hank Stoltz, then you don't know radio.
Good friend,
right? Yes. Great guy, and has forgotten more about radio than I'll ever know. And he was partnering up with Ernie Floyd from Pride Productions and a little outfit called Unity Radio. Mm-hmm. And it's a small, I'm not even sure if it's a 50-watt station signal up on Ascobumscot Hill, I think where another station broadcasts out of. And if you listen to 102.9 in Worcester, you can hear us. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it crackles in and out. They asked us to come on board, excuse me, to provide that streaming component, mm-hmm, so that people could go onto a website and actually stream it, and not just have to be in their car or listen to an old transistor radio. If anybody watching, I know that they all know what a transistor radio is.
I still have one.
I had one. I grew up, I grew up with my dad had one, and so they got to bring those back. And so I thought it was a good opportunity for us to expand our brand, get ourselves out there more, and again, enhance that multimedia platform. I was already doing and I believe the editor before me had been doing a local cable TV show in Worcester. If I can give a shameless plug, Rosen's
Sure.
Roundtable. It's the city council, Gary Rosen. And scintillating TV. We have fun doing it.
Sure.
And we talk about the issues of the day. And that's something we shoot every week, or every other week, I should say, but we shoot 2 shows. And so we were doing TV, we're doing online, doing print, and radio just seemed to fit. I love radio. It's another one of those, there's similarities between radio and print because everybody has, predicted their demise.
Sure.
They're going to die. And, print still keeps chugging along and so does the radio. But the key for radio is also that streaming component. So people can be on their phone, be on their iPad, be on their computer. So that's what we do. And currently the current format really is, it's called Radio Worcester. And it has Talk of the Commonwealth with Hank Stoltz, 6 to 10, Monday through Friday. The Economo Rosen Show with Gary Rosen and former councilor Tony Economo, 10 to 12. And then I was doing every day, Monday through Thursday, and we had 2 reporters that were doing the Friday show. We did that for a year, and it was just becoming a lot. So what we're doing now is I do a Thursday show, Worcester Magazine Radio Hour, noon to 1, and the regular guest typically is the city manager of Worcester. He comes on. We just did that today. And then on Fridays, our culture editor, Josh Lyford, and reporter, Bill Shaner, they do something completely different. Off the rails kind of entertainment, fun thing like that. So, yeah, and so that's where we are. And you think about that, where Worcester Magazine started, and when, newspapers were newspapers. Right. And we were guys that carried around a notepad and a pen. Sometimes we wore a fedora. And back in the old days, you smoked in the newsroom and you had a whiskey in your drawer. Some people might still have that. But I quit smoking, so I don't do that. But now we're carrying around, phones and laptops, and really branching out. So it's really been, I think, an evolution that continues. And I really am proud of the fact that Worcester Magazine, I don't think there isn't another local media outlet here that does all those forms of media. You have it online. And yet the daily paper does, I think they have some podcasts and whatnot, but to do TV, radio, print, online, I think is ambitious, and I think it serves a lot of different people.
Well, that's great, and that is, I think, the future for your radio show. Can people pick that up by outside of Worcester, so throughout?
Absolutely.
And how do they do that?
They can pick it up in Russia.
Well, and how do they do that?
I don't know why I mentioned Russia, given everything that's going on now.
That's right.
I know nobody in Russia.
That's right. You get in a lot of trouble.
That's right. WorcesterMag.com. All you have to do is go to WorcesterMag.com, and in the upper right corner, the Radio Worcester logo button. You just click on that, and you're good to go.
All right, great.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, we'll have to have you come back at some point and talk some more about some of the issues that you encounter, not just within media, but in the world in general. And but I appreciate you coming by. I do think people are struggling to figure out how to find news.
Yeah.
And one of the concerns, I guess it's a concern that I have, sometimes it gets to be so diffuse that you have to know where to find it. And that's the purpose of having you in, was to let people know a little bit more about how to find local news and regional news.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You can still find it in Worcester Magazine every Thursday. I tell you that. We're in locations all around Worcester County. We're here in Shrewsbury, obviously. And yeah, online, definitely. I think that's still a piece that you want people, and by the way, social media is a huge component for what we do.
Yes, that's true.
Facebook is a real big driver, particularly for newspapers and particularly for us. I find our data shows us that a lot of our traffic that goes to our website, it's starting at social media.
Social media. Well, again, there are ways that people can find you.
That's right.
Find out what the news is, and appreciate you coming by.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it, man.
Well, thank you. And we'll be back soon. Hi, I'm here today with Tom McAuliffe, president of MyFM 101.3 radio station, serving all of the Metro West, as well as WMRC. Having worked with you and WMRC and your dad forever, I have to mention WMRC, which is very Milford area oriented. But MyFM 101.3 is relatively new, a year or two?
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years in January,
yeah. And serving all of Metro West. And I wanted to have you in and tell us a little bit about what you do
Yep.
and how media has changed, maybe, although that could take an hour with the two of us in time. But specifically, what kind of programming, what made you get into the FM side and expand your services?
Well, I had been in the industry with my dad right out of college back in 1990 with WMRC, AM station in Milford, which had been on the air since 1956. Very successful, local station tied to the local communities. And about 3 years ago, the FCC changed a couple of the rules, which would allow me to go out and look for an FM frequency that would fit in this market without interfering with other stations that were already licensed here. And after a lot of legwork and a lot of phone calls and a lot of heartache, I found a station in upstate New York, actually, that had the frequency of 101.3 on the FM dial. And I could squeeze that in between Boston, Worcester, and Providence, kind of where our footprint already was, but expanding it. And so we purchased it, and we moved it down to Milford. And I'd like to say it's basically the same station. It's local. It's tied to the community. It's what's going on, and we call it that sweet spot between Boston, Worcester, and Providence that there aren't any other radio stations.
Right.
So I don't say we monopolize it, but when it comes to news and weather and sports and traffic, it's that market. You know, I listen to the other stations and you hear traffic up on the North Shore. Well, that doesn't affect me.
That's right.
I hear traffic down on the Cape. Well, that doesn't affect me. So we try to customize our programming really for that market between Worcester, Boston, and Providence.
That's great, because there is a need, and we've talked about it in the past.
Yeah.
There's no news, local news that satisfies the needs of people in the Metro West in particular, and you've started to fill a niche. So your programming is like what?
Well, you know, our mornings are mostly news, weather, sports, traffic, almost like a WBZ. It's everything you need to start the day. Some music, contests, and things like that. Throughout the day, it's classic hits with local content mixed in. It isn't just a jukebox. It's not just an iPod.
Right.
It's a great blend of music, 60s, 70s, and 80s, but it still has updated traffic and updated weather, and if there were a fire going on. So it's a great blend of music that you'd love to listen to at work, but also still be tied to the local community. What events might be coming up that night that you might want to attend, whether it's high school basketball games or fundraisers and things like that. So we really try to position ourselves. You're not going to get this anywhere else.
That's right. That's right.
We do carry the Red Sox, we carry the Bruins, we carry the Patriots, BC football and basketball, some Paw Sox when it doesn't conflict with the Red Sox, which will hopefully be carrying the Woo Sox or whatever they choose to call themselves. But it really is serving that market, like you say, Matt, that it isn't Boston. And it's not exclusively Worcester, and it's not Providence. It's that market in between that I think is underserved.
It definitely is. Until you came along, definitely was empty, an empty niche, really.
And the FM signal, it gives us a much stronger signal. And I think in a lot of cases, it's more perception. You're that local AM station, meaning your grandparents, your great-grandparents listened to it. So I think for a lot of people, just even the FM name carries more weight than maybe the AM station used to. But, you know, when you talk about the media landscape and how it's changed, it isn't really radio anymore. It's not TV anymore. It's content.
Right.
And how do you push it out to people? Some people don't own a radio. They don't own a radio in their house like we grew up with.
Yeah, it boggles my mind.
You know,
I'm still a radio listener. Yeah.
You know, they get their news and information and entertainment on their phone or on their tablet or on their laptop. Well, we have a phone app. We have, you can listen to the station on your laptop or your phone.
Well, you have a website too. You put news on your website.
News is on the it's content. And how do you push it out to people, whether it be with an email blast into somebody's inbox, whether it's on their phone, whether it's a text. We have a text line, so people can sign up to get weather alerts on their phone with a text. It's not radio like it used to be.
No, it really isn't.
But honestly, Matt, it's the same content that great local radio stations used to have, just on all platforms now.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody goes to your website, you have
They can link to everything. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We have our news on there, weather links, lottery numbers, school cancellations and things like that. I mean, that used to be the real wheelhouse for local radio
Oh,
stations.
yes, it was,
right?
yes.
You had to get up early and put on the local station.
That's right, that's right.
You know, you could put on WBZ, but you had to hear everything from Abington to Yarmouth
right.
to hear yours.
In the Metro West, years ago, WKOX, you'd listen to
bet.
Roland Boucher for the weather, and then you'd get your no school announcements,
Yeah.
Dave Scott and a couple other people, and then if
Yeah.
you were in Milford, you'd listen to WMRC for that. And it's different now.
And I think it's critical now with the different platforms that we have, because, you know, what used to be the 24-hour news cycle is now 24 seconds. And people expect that.
Yes.
Not everybody needs a 10-minute news story or a 10-paragraph news story.
Right.
Give me 10 seconds. Give me the gist of what's happening, and then if I'm interested, I'll find the rest of that information someplace else. So it's kind of that USA Today approach of that left-hand column, you know, the 10
yes,
headlines in the money, and the 10 headlines in sports, and the 10 headlines in lifestyle, and I'm good to go. And I think that's where things are going. It's just give me the gist.
That's right. Everything's so much faster, which isn't
Yeah.
always better, but it's faster.
It's just the way it is now.
And your website, if they want news stories, it's sort of set up that way. It's the headline with a picture and a little couple of paragraphs.
You got it. It really is. And part of that is, as we talked about, running a local station is expensive. It's you know, we've got 7 full-time employees, maybe another 10 part-timers, whether they're doing sports broadcasting and things like that. You know, we don't have 24 stringers out there writing stories for us. It's give me the gist of it. You know, I mean, we now serve about 750,000 people in, you know, 25 communities.
Right.
I'd rather have 20 kind of 2-paragraph stories than 3
Right.
extensive, you know.
That's for somebody else. That's a different
That's
kind
for
of
somebody else.
media. And you
It's
can find that if you're looking
Correct.
for that.
Yep. I want to give you what you need to get through the day. And then if we hit on something that you absolutely need to know more about, Mr. Google.
That's it. That's right. That's right. So how do people find you and your website?
It's 101.3 on the dial. We still say on the dial.
Sure.
Website's myfm1013.com. We have a special advertising website, which is myfmmedia.com, if somebody were interested more in that. And, you know, our phone app is MyFM 1013 Live. It's what people expect.
Sure.
It's really what people expect. It's multi-platform, and you'd better be there.
Yeah. And you are. So thank you very much
tried.
for coming. I
you.
appreciate that. Known you and your dad for a long time. You do a great job with both radio stations and
Thank you
your
so much.
website. And wanted to have you come and talk about it.
I appreciate it. Thanks,
thank
Matt.
you. And we'll be right back. Hi, I'm here with Jen Roy from Jen Roy PR Agency. Thank you very much for coming. We're not going to talk about public relations today, though. We want to talk a little bit about Jen's struggle with OCD.
Yep.
And you're willing, which is I think is marvelous, to talk about it, to help other people who are struggling with sort of the same types of issues.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit about, when did you become aware that you were really affected? I know you've struggled with this for a while.
Well, I've got to say, you know, I just started talking about it about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now. And when I say talking about it, if I have an opportunity to speak somewhere, like for example on this show, I will take it. But I mainly talk on my private social media, which isn't a public social media. For me, it's a big deal talking about it. But I'm starting off, you know, slow with family and friends, and if anyone else wants to hear, I'm happy to talk with them. And I started talking about it because I had the blessing of my family. That was really important to me in talking about my issues, because it's a family problem. It's something that they've had to deal with too, as they love me, and I suffered a lot with OCD. And it's hard to talk about for anybody,
Sure.
Especially with the stigma that's out there. So I guess to make a long story short, I really started having OCD, and that's obsessive compulsive disorder, at 28 years old. There was a moment, now there's, what people don't understand is very misunderstood OCD. People think it's a mental disorder that makes you really neat and picky about things. And the trouble in that is that not only is it really inaccurate. If you have it out, if you're out there and you don't know what's wrong with you, and you hear that that's what OCD is, that's, you know, probably, I think maybe, I don't know what the percent is of people that have OCD that's about being neat, but even those people who might have that don't really have it, because they would be paralyzed in fear if something was out of order. It's not just, oh, I'm frustrated because my house isn't neat. Mm-hmm. You would be paralyzed with fear if it wasn't in place, and you would be very anxious, maybe even have meltdowns about it. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different themes for OCD, and one of those themes is something that I developed. I didn't even know it existed, but I had developed a fear of food contamination. Mm-hmm. And one day, I was 28 years old, and I ordered food from Nancy Chang, which I love their food, it's delicious. And I was going through a stressful time in my life. I will definitely say that work was stressful. There were I had just moved home from New York City. I lived there for a while. So I was like quarter life crisis at that point, sure, trying to figure out what to do with my life and blah, 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 blah. And I was heating up some Nancy Chang, and it was noodles. And a thought popped into my head, and this is what I learned is an intrusive thought. So a thought popped into my head, what if these noodles were prepared next to raw chicken? And I said, oh my gosh, what if that's true? Then these were exposed to raw chicken. But why would I think that? You know, it's a reputable restaurant, and why would I even think that? Mm-hmm. So it's an intrusive thought. It comes in out of nowhere.
Now, you didn't have any issues before?
No.
That you were aware of anyway?
Yeah, no severe OCD before that. I mean, I had some anxiety and depression. So this was probably a lot of that not being dealt with, mm-hmm, but that's not for me to say, you know. People can determine that with their own experiences. But when I had that thought about the food, I ate half my dinner that night. And I said, if this is a thing, if this becomes a thing, I'm in trouble. But I don't think it will, because I'd never thought like this before. But man, was it scary enough for me to only eat half my dinner. I didn't know that I would eventually go down to 90 pounds, you know, in my 30s. I had to fight to not get a feeding tube because I didn't want a feeding tube, and I wasn't eating. I was so scared to eat, and I was scared that something would make me sick. Mm-hmm. I was very afraid, not to be too graphic, but I was very afraid of throwing up. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who have a fear of throwing up, and I forget the technical word for it, but you get the drift.
Sure.
It scared me so much that I even was afraid at one point of drinking water.
Wow.
Which kills you.
Sure.
So, but I said, if I don't drink the water, I will die. So I can't do that, you know. So that was how bad it got. I was 90 pounds. I worked my butt off to get better. I was seeing a nutritionist. I was going to my primary care doctor every Friday, getting a weigh-in. Mm-hmm. I was seeing an OCD therapist for exposure therapy, because when you have OCD, what helps it is if you constantly face your fears, which is very hard to do and very hard to ask someone to do, but that literally is some of the best treatment, is exposure response prevention therapy, and different things. And eventually I got on the right medication for it. I'm fine to say I take Prozac, and that helped me tremendously. I tried to fight not going on that because of the stigma for about 15 years. I tried not going on that, and I regret that, but I also tried everything in my power to do this naturally. I tried yoga, I tried working out. spiritual practices and everything, and I am, as you know, I'm a very spiritual person.
Yes, sir.
I rely on my faith, and that helped me tremendously. But I certainly got worse when I didn't take the medication sooner. So I just try to talk to, I have a bit of, I think of a reputation in this community where people know me because for 10 years I was on Channel 3 News.
That's right.
And I had the opportunity through that platform to meet a lot of people, interview a lot of people, get to know more people than you normally would. So I feel that I have the friendships and the trust with people, that they know me, and I want them to know that I suffer from this, I have suffered from this, and I don't want them to feel alone, and I want them to, I want to educate the public about what OCD really is, because the average time it takes people to get treated is about 10 to 12 years.
It's
a long
really
time.
one of those issues to me that has a physical type of component.
Sure.
It's not just this person's
No,
a little off the wall. There's a
Yeah.
physical issue that creates this neurological.
It is.
type of
It's
thing.
an issue with the brain. It's a disorder. It's the CDC.
And I think that's important to realize, for people to realize, because that's where the stigma comes from.
You know what, you're right, yeah.
But it's something you didn't do to yourself. It's something that you
No.
didn't create. Unfortunately, instead of some sort of diabetes or something, you have a physical issue, an imbalance in
It
your
is.
brain.
It is a physical issue. For me, not all mental disorders are physical, but when I tried for 15 years to take care of anxiety and depression, and I was, they would say high functioning. I've had great jobs. I've been able to do some great things and participate in great things. It never held me back till the last couple of years, when it just got unmanageable.
So, because we've got to wrap up, we could talk about this for an hour, because you're helping so many people, I think, just by opening up
I hope
and
so.
sharing your experience and letting people. What should they do if somebody is dealing with this themselves? Which
Sure.
is where should they go?
First of all, I just want you to know I understand the suffering, and my heart goes out to you, because it can be brutal on you and your loved ones. There's OCD Massachusetts, and McLean Hospital has an OCD institute there. And the people associated with that, the doctors, are wonderful. There are some doctors in Worcester that are associated with the McLean OCD Institute.
great.
And there's free talks at UMass Hospital, the Lake Ave campus, once a month for families and for people.
And I think that's a big component. As you said, it affects the whole family.
It does.
Well, thank you. I guess our message is, if you are dealing with this, go get help right away.
Please get
Don't
help,
hesitate.
and you're not alone. And you can get better from a mental illness.
And you are certainly
and
somebody who
who
demonstrates
loves
that.
going out to restaurants and doing things that I didn't think I'd ever be able to do again. You can get better, and you should not be ashamed of any of it.
That's great. Thank you very much for coming and sharing that.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You're very welcome. This is an important message, and we'll be back. Hoping that today we treat everybody we meet with kindness, respect, and tolerance. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.